Alright, so we're back in the world of Diablo 4, and today guys, I'm going to be presenting to you my Frenzy build. I've noticed a lot of players were playing the same old Whirlwind build, and while Whirlwind is always a very safe option to pick, and that's why a lot of people play it, I want to try something a little bit different and new. I tend to like this berserker playstyle, and fortunately Diablo has a really cool way to make a berserker style build. I'm going to briefly explain to you how the build works, but if you want to skip ahead, there will be timestamps as well as a mobalytics guide down in the description, so you can just go and read that if you want to. So how the build works is pretty simple. We're taking advantage of the ability called Frenzy. This is your basic attack, and when you support it with this barrage effect which stacks 5 additional times and giving you berserking whenever you stack it fully. Also Frenzy stacks, which will give you 2 additional Frenzy stacks, and Ferocity, which will give Frenzy stacks of Ferocity, which increases your attack speed. Now in addition to this, we utilize Wrath of the Berserker, and Wrath of the Berserker got a brand new node called Deep Impact. And what this does is, every time you attack, you will do a fiery explosion of damage. Now, seeing that if you had something that attacks super rapidly, you can really get a lot of value out of this during the duration of berserking, and well, Frenzy actually fills that extremely well. You end up with a build that attacks super fast and takes advantage of Deep Impact constantly, and we end up melting bosses pretty fast. Now in addition to this, there have been a new addition to runes called the Fury set, and what the Fury set basically does is it gives you increased damage based on how much Fury you have. So when you have the full set, if you have over 100 Fury, you become Colossal, which will double your size, your actual physical character size. Every time you get hit, you'll get 10 Fury, and your maximum life is increased by 30%. And the big thing is you'll have 720% multiplicative damage. This is an absolute absurd set. And with the current setup that we have, we end up with over 45,000 HP and we deal a ton of damage. Anyway, that's it for the explanation. Time to break down the build. Alright, now that you guys know how the build works, let's go over the parts and just show you how to put it together. So, we're going to be using Frenzy. As I said in the intro, this one is just a very fast, rapid attacking ability. You're just going to attack really fast and get Frenzy stacks. We're going to support this with Frenzy stacks, which gives us 2 additional stacks. We're going to support it with Ferocity, which is also going to give it Ferocity, which gives more attack speed. Now, the main capstone we're going to be using is Barrage, and this is going to give you 5 additional Frenzy stacks, and then it's going to give you Berserking for 5 seconds when you're at max stack, so you will have Berserking as long as you're attacking, which is kind of the idea. I do want to man fight with this build, and that's kind of how I'm trying to build this. Now, coming down here, we have Hammer of the Ancients. I used this a little bit more earlier on, but now we kind of hit a lot more with just our left click, as most things die really quick. But you will sometimes use this Hammer of the Ancients for AoE because you don't have 100% uptime on Wrath of the Berserker for a long time. We're using size and damage bonus because we want to hit everything, and then we're supporting this with Fury Generation. This helps out with Fury Generation, but honestly, when you're using Rallying Cry, you're probably fine without it because it gives you a lot. For our defensive, we're picking up Rally Cry. Rally Cry is very important to this build. It's going to give us a massive amount of move speed, and we're going to support it with Fortify, which is going to give us Fortification, which is super good for defense and for some of our damage things. We use Rune Words, so this is our main way of proccing Rune Words, so keep that in mind. This is super important. We're going to get Booming, which is going to increase the resource generation and movement speed by additional 10%. And this is super important because we really want to generate resources. We want to make sure our resource threshold is high so we don't lose our buff from the talisman, because that gives us 700% multiplicative damage, and that is really big for the damage of this build. And then we're using Potency. This is just going to make these effects more effective, so that's why we're using it. Over on our Brawling Tree, we're using Warcry. Warcry is going to have Mighty Roar. This is going to give us Berserking, which again is always nice. We're also going to be using Ferocity on this, and this is going to give us 2 stacks of Ferocity, and this is super good for ramping, pretty much. That's why we have it. If we go into a fight and we stop attacking, we need to move from a dangerous mechanic. Well, Ferocity is going to give us the ability to instantly get 2 stacks of Ferocity, and we can start ramping much faster, and that's the purpose of that skill. We're also using Vulnerable because it makes them vulnerable, and this helps us with vulnerable uptime, so it's really big, especially when you get more cooldown, which is the important part of this build. We're also going to be using Leap. Leap is good for crossing terrain. You can use something else here if you don't want to use Leap, but I like it. We're going to use Fury Generation for more Fury sustain. I actually don't have anything allocated here. I should have Pull here. I don't know why I don't have it, but put Pull here to help you get them gathered. And then we're using Earth Shatter. It's going to create earthquakes on the ground, but most importantly, during a 2-second window of clicking this button, you can keep leaping. And since this scales off of your speed, attack speed, you can actually leap a lot if you have this. So that's why I like it. I think it just helps us with crossing terrain and things. And that's super important for like movement and things like that. Finally, we're using Wrath of the Berserker. We're going to be supporting it with deep impact. And what deep impact does is every time you attack, you're going to get a fiery explosion. This scales off of fire damage and this scales off of all damage. So keep that in mind if you really want to scale damage. I think all damage will probably be safer, because if you go pure fizz, you're not going to get a lot of impact benefit from deep impact. So keep that in mind. We're going to use Fury Generation. This is going to give us attack speed whenever we're berserking, and it's going to give us more Fury Generation. And then we're using Duration Bonus. It makes us 2 seconds longer in the duration, which we need. At the moment, it has a cooldown of 77 seconds with an uptime of 17.2 seconds. So there's a lot of downtime in this skill right now. I am working on cooldown, but I do have some things that kind of help it. But at the moment, this isn't an accurate representation of the number, but we're still working on it to get it like a lot better. So keep that in mind. Coming over to our gear, I'll break it down and start off with some of the things that's super important to keep in mind. I do have a Grandfather. I think people think Grandfather is a really strong weapon. I mean, it does have crit damage, so this is really big. This is contributing to a lot of my HP and some decent amount of crit damage. You do not need a Grandfather. I just use it because I got it. You can go with a crit weapon. I think would be arguably better, or I wouldn't say arguably better. Grandfather is a great item. The crit damage is great. I'm not trying to undermine that. I'm just saying you don't need it to make this build work. You could go like crit chance and you will get probably arguably more value, because I'm struggling with crit chance as it is. So just keep that in mind. Going over the aspects though, on our helmet, we have resistance, life, and resources. Like, this is a really bad helmet. As I said, I've only been playing this character 24 hours. So I don't have the best gear in terms of what I think should be here. Ideally, I would probably have like armor here or something like that. What we do have here though is whenever you're above 50 primary resource, which you generally should be, we'll deal a 17.5% multiplicative increased damage, but also gain berserking, but you will lose 3 primary resources per second. This one is debatable on if it's worth it. We do have good berserking uptime, but this can really keep berserking active when we're not hitting, or when we're not at max stacks, or when we don't have Warcry active. And we do get some synergies like defense, like damage reduction and things like that. So if we're not like hitting the boss and we're not getting that berserking, this will maintain us berserking, which will give us damage reductions like if we're dodging dangerous mechanics. So that's my thought process behind this one, but this one can be interchanged. So just keep that in mind. For our chest, we have life, armor, physical resistance, and cost reduction. Again, things I don't really want besides the life and armor, but yeah, that's what we're rocking. We're always going to put protector on something, and this one has protector. In terms of our rune, where we have Igni Q, and what Igni does is it will just basically store offering after every like 0.3 seconds, and whenever you use a basic skill, it will trigger that offering. We're using Earth and Bulwark just for survivability, and every time we war cry or rally cry, we can proc this. So that's why it's important you're constantly pressing rally cry. You're not really pressing a lot of buttons in this build outside of just attacking, but you will be spamming rally cry off a cooldown, because it just gives us fortify, and it gives us move speed, and it can proc this off a cooldown. So it's really, really nice to always have the bulwark going off. So just keep that in mind. For our gloves, it is currently disabled because people were exploiting things, I'm sure, some type of bug. For this build specifically, it doesn't take advantage of that bug, so you won't have any like change in the footage that you. I don't like cheating in video games. I think that's kind of lame. I know a lot of people like doing it because it shows big numbers, but I don't do that. This build had no interaction with the cheating. I don't even completely understand what it was, but regardless, Limitless Rage is disabled in the moment. But what it does is each point of fury that you generate increases your damage by 1%. This is a multiplicative percent for 4 seconds essentially. And because we have Rally Cry giving us so much, this is giving us a massive amount of resource generation. And so this ends up giving us pretty decent damage. You're going to be spamming Rally Cry anyway. It's going to be constantly draining your resources. So it kind of works really well with Limitless Rage, because you're always getting rid of your resources and you're always generating it. So yeah, this one is pretty big. Ideally, you wouldn't want resource cost reduction on this build because that actually kind of hurts you. But yeah, that's what we're using. For our leggings, once again, don't like anything we have here except for the basic skill and armor. The other two are kind of worthless. But again, I don't have the best gear. What we have on this is while wielding a two-handed weapon, you gain damage reduction. Correct me if I'm wrong. This works even if I don't have it in my hand. If it does, go something like someone let me know down in the comments. I haven't played Diablo 4 in like 2 years, so I don't recall if that's how this works. But if it does work, if it doesn't work that way, just use some other defensive node. What we have here is a back rune, and what the back does is every time you like move 5 meters, oh actually 10 meters actually, you will gain some reduction on your cooldown. This is how we're managing cooldown on Wrath of the Berserker in the moment. That's what we're doing right now, but ideally we would like to have a better way to reduce cooldown. We just been really unlucky in gear, but that's what we're using for now. For our feet, we have maximum life, move speed, armor, and shadow resistance. Still don't love those stats, but 2 or 3 out of 4 of those are really good. For the boots, Ghost Walker, when you're unstoppable you get MS, you're unhindered. Obviously those are always good stats, so we want Ghost Walker. For our, I'll go accessories next. For our necklace, I was looking for a battle trance. I don't know if it exists anymore. If anyone's run into a battle trance, feel free to leave it down in the comments and let me know if you've seen a battle trance. I have no clue if it's there. But for now we're using this one. What it does is it gives us strength, all damage multi. That's going to change to crit eventually. Perfect cooldown reduction, which is big, and +2 to all skills, which is pretty nice. While we're fortified, we're getting 90% increase, 87% multiplicative increased damage. We're always fortified because we're constantly pressing rally cry, so works out really well. For the other ring, using Edge Master, based on our resources, we're going to get more damage. Obviously we're always high on resources because we generally want to be, because we want that buff from the talismans. Maximum life, attack speed, damage. We want, like on the rings and on the necklaces, we want cooldown. Like we want cooldown and we want crit. I don't have it, but that would make the build so much better. For the other ring, life, crit, we actually got physical damage multiplier and physical resistance. Not really something I care about. And then we have the expectant basic skills grant increased damage for 4 seconds, stacking up to 10 times, which is big. For the club, we have weapon damage strength, maximum life, all damage multi, and crit chance. I would argue that's pretty solid stats, so that's what we're rocking. What we have on this is something I've never heard of called the Moonrise, and damaging an enemy with a basic skill grants 4% attack speed for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times, so we get attack speed. But you also, whenever you reach your maximum stacks, you gain a vampiric blood rage, gaining increased basic skill attack damage, which is a multiplicative up to 120%, and 15% move speed for 10 seconds. So we're super fast and we do more basic skill damage. Really cool. I think it's dope. I've never seen this before, and I think it worked really well with the build, so you want to pick that up. For our axe, we got a little lucky on this and we got tempered on a perfect crit roll. We have ferocity stacks. This gives us up to 6 maximum ferocity stacks, which again contributes to attack speed. This is the only weapon I've actually tempered because masterworked, because it's close to perfect. Life on hit is super important, by the way. But we have maximum life, strength, weapon damage, crit chance, and life on hit. Life on hit is super good because we're trying to man fight most things. And we want to stand there and keep hitting them. And since we attack so fast, we're stealing so much life. And you'll see even on the next axe, we have a similar thing. We have those same exact stats: strength, weapon damage, maximum life. We should put crit on this one. We will after this video. This one has what is this called? Intercom. When you're standing still, you deal up to 75% increased damage, multiplicative increased damage. This is once again super big because again I want to man fight things and stand my ground, and we do end up standing still a lot when we fight things, so this is like super cool for man fighting, so that's why we're using it. Then we talked about grandfather already, using grandfather. Now for the helmet, I did find a Harlequin crest. I don't use it in this build. Nothing in this footage uses the Harlequin crest. I think this is like one of the better chase items in the game from what chat is telling me, so I didn't want to include it in the build because we're already including grandfather, and people seem to think this item is also a chase item too. These items are super easy to find, by the way. I don't know why they're chase items. They seem to drop like candy to me, but regardless, if you do find a Harlequin crest, this could easily replace the helmet, because I think 20% DR and +4 to all skills is super valuable, and the CDR is also incredibly valuable. So yeah, for future reference, if you do get one, use the Harlequin crest. It's super good. I may put it in the build in the next video. For our talismans, what you're aiming to do is get +2 martial skills if possible. We're using the Fury set because it gives us those benefits we talked about: the maximum life, the Fury on hit, the multiplicative damage, this character size, all that stuff. Super big. Combat skills, martial fury, resistances is the best I had, and then martial skills. Martial skills is important because it gives us excuse me, gives us numbers to give us plus to frenzy, so that's why we use it. For our expertise, we're using the two-handed axe expertise because it gives us Vaughn and it gives us crit chance when against fall enemies, so that's why we're using it. For our Paragon board, I am not the best at making Paragons. Keep in mind, I have not played Diablo in almost 2.5 years, so my Paragon boarding is not the most impressive, but I'll go over it. We grab all these nodes here. I have, what is this glyph? Cleaver for crit multi on axes. We path like this. I'll have this in the mobalytics, by the way, as well. Have it pathed like that. Then we grab this board, which has flawless technique, which will give us a crit chance whenever we consecutively strike an enemy, and it increases the crit damage, which is super big for this build. We have Ambidextrous, which will give us more damage when we're wielding one-handed weapons. And I didn't say this in the intro, but you want axes. This is an axe build, so you need to use axes. Probably should have said that somewhere in the intro. Maybe you guys made it to the Paragon board, but yeah, we want axes. Heavy blow, we path like this. Nimble, grab this stuff, grab that, then we went this way. This is the Carnage board. Berserking now grants us a attack speed, and we deal increased physical and fire damage, which is super good for both of our stats. Came this way, grab this. I actually grabbed this one because I want the crit. Berserking here. I think you guys are seeing it. I don't really explain this the best, but yeah. Irie, this is going to give us berserking damage reduction. We're always berserking, so we get good DR, so we stay alive. This board is the Decimator board. I think this is just the best we had. At least to me, it felt like it's the best we had, but this is how it's set up. And then we put Exploit here. This makes it so we make enemies vulnerable. And then this is the final board, which is Warbringer. I went with this because every time we spend Fury, we gain maximum life as fortified, and we deal increased multiplicative damage while we're fortified, and we're always fortified anyway. So I felt like that made sense. I wanted to give us a good defensive mix, I guess. We have on this is Territorial, which is going to give us damage reduction against close enemies. We're always close to enemies, so DR. Maybe I'm over investing in defense on this build, but I don't like dying in video games, so you know, that's how I tend to build. I build closer to a hardcore player than a softcore player. So other than that, I think that's pretty much all the information you need for this build. As I said multiple times in this video, there will be a mobalytics guide. I will be live streaming this build every single day up until maybe Subnautica 2 comes out. So if you want to come check out the build, I'll be streaming here on YouTube as well as Twitch. So would love to have you guys stop by. Let me know down in the comments what you guys like to see next in terms of builds, because I am going to be playing Diablo for the next 2 weeks. My name is Fervor, guys. Really appreciate you stopping by, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video very soon.